Hello, good morning. It's so great to see everybody here bright and early on a Saturday morning. Thank you so much for answering our opening question. We love to hear from you when we start our meetings. And I saw some great answers, the people, the learning, the motivating speakers, the resources. That's exactly what I was thinking, especially the community. And we're missing that a little bit today, but trying to build that feeling of community even in this remote format. So for those of you joining Inspire 2021 for the first time today, welcome. Welcome to the conference. For those of you who were here yesterday or Thursday, welcome back for more great professional development sessions. I hope you're enjoying a cup of hot chocolate or a glass of lemonade that we sent you in our welcome pack. I hope you look at those goodies and enjoy those. I'm Eileen Frankel from Young Entrepreneur Institute, and I am proud to say that I've been a part of all of the past 7 Inspire conferences. They've all been amazing, and 2021 is no different. Our broad theme for this year is improving student learning, and we are on day 3 of amazing keynote speakers, workshops, panel sessions, and certainly resources for you. We've got some fun and games planned for today. We've got our big announcement about Yippee. We've been giving you some teasers about that, and that's going to take place later this morning. Most of you have joined via the Whova web platform or event app, and you can keep referring to Whova for the schedule and Zoom links and lots of resources available to you. Today, I'm here in my brand new Yippee t-shirt. Hopefully you can see it just a little bit. If you take a look around in the Zoom boxes, you can see the YEI team and some of our friends from Burton Morgan as well wearing the Yippee t-shirts. I just want to ask the YEI team to give a little wave. We've got some familiar faces, some new faces. Jesse Jones, Jessica Dragar, Kelly Bigger, Ariana Smith, Nicole Canatano, Robin Eisen, Kristen Romito, and Evan Ewell. We are so excited for you to learn more about Yippee later this morning. At Young Entrepreneur Institute, our core belief is that every child should learn about and experience entrepreneurship. And you can see Jesse modeling that on our YEI t-shirt. We know that the skills gained in entrepreneurial lessons and activities provide great benefits to students in any work or endeavor they choose later in life. At YEI, we support K-12 entrepreneurship education by providing professional development for educators and entrepreneurship education partnerships with program providers and others in the community. The Inspire Conference is our signature program. We consult with schools and organizations, we manage a number of entrepreneurial education programs, and we collaborate with other organizations in the youth entrepreneur education ecosystem. I'm so happy to be here today, but not so really happy that we're still here on Zoom. We're making the most of it, and we're glad that some people from farther distances can join us today and make it convenient. We wanted to keep the meeting on Zoom. We just didn't feel like we were in a place to make that decision to be in person this year. There's still so much uncertainty and so much illness. We wanted to keep you safe and your students safe. Our hope is that we will be together next year, both in person and in Zoom, and whatever we need to build community and to continue learning together. We might not love it, but we're getting pretty good at this Zoom, right? So here's some quick Zoom reminders. Keep your microphone muted so we can hear the keynote speaker. Turn on your camera if possible. We love to see you and know that you're interacting with us. Use the chat for comments and questions. Participate as much as you can when it's appropriate, and check the Whova app for downloads and resources. On today's agenda, you can see we're going to have a little teaser about Yippee. We're going to talk about highlights from student entrepreneurs. Our keynote speaker at around 9 o'clock is Marcia Tate. Following the keynote, we'll have a choice of workshop with either Marcia Tate or John Spencer. Following that, we'll have the presentation of our Samuel Elliott Award to an educator, lucky educator. At 11:30, we'll have our introduction to the Yippee platform and we'll play our connections game. Finally, at about 12:15, we'll have a wrap up and we'll stay on for those of you who want to create their new Yippee accounts. In preparation for the Yippee session, we're going to ask you to download this app on your mobile device. You will need a mobile device. The app is called Mobile Adventures. It should be available in the App Store or on the Google Play Store. Here's a picture of it. If you want to get a jump, you don't have to do it now. You will have time to do that a little bit later. Before we jump into today's sessions, we're going to start off with something new. For those of you who have been here the past 2 days, you've seen that. Mindset Minute with Scott Mann from Venture Lab. We're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, of course. Scott is going to share with us an entrepreneurial mindset that we want to focus on. Scott is the Director of Education and Training at Venture Lab, one of our entrepreneurial education partners. Throwing it to you, Scott.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well and you do have that mug of hot chocolate or coffee. Sitting here early morning, Scott Mann, Director of Education with Venture Lab, also former classroom teacher and out of school time instructor. And on this Saturday morning, husband and father of 2. So if my CFO and my CEO pop in, we'll say hi. So for day 1 of our Inspire conference, I shared how 8-year-old Sean used that lens of empathy to design his transformer desk for his friend so he could stay focused at school. Yesterday, we put on a growth mindset lens. It kind of looked at the mirror at ourselves, and educators like Jen T shared how she wanted to make her classroom a student learning centered environment, but she wasn't there yet. So Jen was recognizing her potential to learn and accomplish her goals. So Jen, we know you got this, you can do it. And as we cheer on Jen, everyone here in Inspire and beyond, we know that that path that Jen will take, that you and your students take as you're on that learning journey to accomplish your goals, overcome challenge and solve problems, it's not a straight line. It doesn't just happen. And so during this process of learning and creating over time, we know there's wins and we know there's setbacks. So today in our Mindset Minute, we're actually going to look at 2 different mindsets. So we're going to look through the entrepreneurial lens of embracing failure and persistence and grit. So I do have my lenses here. Earlier this year, Venture Lab worked with an entrepreneur, 17-year-old Victoria, in our Spark mentorship program. And she was working on these specific mindsets that she selected as she went through that journey and winding path of bringing her entrepreneurial idea to life. So I'm going to let her share her experience here. And of course, whenever you want to share, that is when it doesn't happen. So here we have Victoria. Victoria noticed her friends in class that would be looking toward the front of the room and couldn't see the board, but they had glasses they could put on. So she's like, hey, why aren't you putting on your glasses so you can see the board and know what the teacher's teaching? And they were like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't want to put on my glasses. So she thought to herself, like, what can I do to help? And she came up with the creative solutions of charms for glasses. And in this video, she's going to share her journey of how these mindsets played a role to bring her idea to life.
So one of the mindsets that I was working on was persistence and grit. I especially used this at the beginning because although I kind of knew how I wanted to make these glasses with charms, I didn't really know how to. I hadn't made like a sturdy prototype yet. So when I was making it, I did experience like a lot of failures, but with persistence and grit, I was able to get through that and I was able to make a good prototype. So that's definitely a mindset that has helped me while making this business.
So Victoria,
donating to this program is a powerful thing.
Well, we need to stop the sound. Victoria is also an aspiring optometrist who her tagline for her business is "Find meaning everywhere you look," which is such a great slogan. And on this topic of embracing failure, persistence, and grit through this process, there's a lot to unpack especially when you zoom in on that specific moment of failure, all of the emotions that are wrapped up there and how over time we choose to respond and take action. So I'm going to drop in the chat here. Later on, you can come back around. We have our mindset of the month that YEI shares out in their newsletter that you should definitely sign up for to go into a little more of this process. And as you're turning through the rest of your session today, returning to your weekend, whatever you have planned, I want you to look through that lens of embracing failure and persistence and grit to learn from and work through those difficult moments. But if you've ever seen the show Reading Rainbow, remember LeVar Burton used to say, well, don't take my word for it. I'm going to leave you with a parting words from some amazing young entrepreneurs for you.
I would probably say that, like, you need to fail forward, not like a fail means I can't do it. I messed up, now it's over. You need to continue pushing and just continue going on and don't quit.
I would just say to go for it. I know for like my goals word, it seemed really intimidating and I was scared. But just like making that leap is probably the biggest or like the hardest part. And so I would just say to go for it. If you have an idea, don't be afraid of failure.
I would just say keep going because you're going to have your ups and downs. And that's what an entrepreneur is, a risk taker. You're going to have to take a little risks to keep going.
And I would say don't be afraid to like, don't be afraid to fail or just try new things. Because doing this thing was my first time like doing, I guess, entrepreneurship. So I was a bit scared at first, but I still tried it anyway because it's a good opportunity for me.
I'd say do something that you're interested in, something that you won't immediately give up on because it's too boring or it's just too hard for you to do.
So with those great words, go forth, work hard, embrace that failure, and keep persisting. Have a great conference, and I'll see y'all next week.
Scott, thank you. Thank you so much. I love to hear your perspective. I loved seeing some Ohio children featured in that video and focused. I know they have loved participating in your Spark program. And certainly when we hear the words of children, it rings so true about our own fears and our own reluctance to take that risk. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to shift gears just a little bit. We promised you a Yippee teaser, and that's where we're going to go right now. We are so excited to share more. We'll keep it at that for right now. That's your teaser. So come back and hear more in a little bit after our keynotes. Getting back to our disappointments about being at a remote conference, one of our real disappointments about being remote is missing the chance to interact with student entrepreneurs. We love shopping at the Young Entrepreneur Market and seeing the creations that our student entrepreneurs are showcasing every year. We have been pleasantly surprised at how many students have been busy making and selling during the pandemic. We were surprised that this was happening, but we were happy to offer them the chance to sell. We have outdoor locations where students could be safe, and we kept this program going and have really wonderful feedback from our students. So we can't have them here with you today to sell, so we thought we'll let them talk to you in their own words.
Hi, I'm Jessica Dragar, the Program Manager for the Young Entrepreneur Market at the Young Entrepreneur Institute. The Young Entrepreneur Market is a program that provides kindergarten through 12th grade students an opportunity to start a business and sell out in the community. Entrepreneur is a big word, and sometimes people don't quite understand what it means. An entrepreneur is a risk taker, creative thinker, problem solver, and opportunity-seeking go-getter. At YI, we are helping to make their big ideas a reality.
My name is Drew. I go to Woodrow School and I'm in 5th grade. I own Drew's Workshop and I make wood products such as these coasters, this cherry cutting board, and these tools.
Hi, my name is Michael Matthews. I'm 15 years old. I go to university school and my business name is Mike's Lawn Care, and the service that I do is cutting grass around the greater Cleveland area.
Hi, I'm Rocco. I'm 13 years old. I'm in 7th grade and I go to the Littman School. The business I own is Rocco's Rainbows, featuring super duper tie-dye. My two best sellers are shirts and socks.
Hi, I'm Raina, and I'm 9 in 3rd grade at Mandel JDS. Hi, I'm Romy, and I'm 9 in 3rd grade at Mandel JDS. Hi, I'm Moselle, and I'm 6 in 1st grade at Mandel JDS. And we own the Sunshine Sisters Boutique and make masks, chains, necklaces, and bracelets. Our products are special because they have inspirational message on them, like be bold and courage.
By participating in the Young Entrepreneur Market, students can experience entrepreneurship at an early age to help develop important 21st century skills, all while having fun and earning money along the way.
The question that I've answered is what skills have you learned? The skills that I've learned is that you always need to talk to your customers. Talking to your customers helps them understand about your company and it helps you sell more.
I have learned to greet people with expression and use my math skills to calculate the change.
Selling experiences help to develop the mindset that will prepare students for future success, regardless of what career path they choose. The lessons learned at farmers markets and community events are invaluable as student entrepreneurs then become mentors themselves, sharing words of advice and success.
The advice I would give to a new entrepreneur would be reinvest in your company so it can grow, marketing so people know about you, and quality so people come back.
The advice that I would give for a starting entrepreneur is to stick with your idea and don't be afraid if there's a need to change your idea, and always be open to new ideas and others around you influencing your ideas. And also be aware of what is going on around you socially and what is trending.
In Northeast Ohio, students can participate in the Young Entrepreneur Market as an individual or with their class and with the guidance of an educator. We provide the vendor space, tent, and table. All you have to do is reserve a date, bring the handmade product, and your best smile. Our team can also help you organize a selling event on site at your school. If you aren't local, we're happy to help get you started on how to bring the Young Entrepreneur Market experience to your community.
Thank you, Young Entrepreneur Market, for an opportunity of a lifetime. I wouldn't have grown my business without you.
Love these kids. And I do have one of Raina's Be Inspired bracelets on. I think I bought that at our 2019 conference, or maybe last year. But I thought I needed to wear it today. The Inspire conference is a partnership of Young Entrepreneur Institute and Burton D. Morgan Foundation. For the past 7 years, Inspire has brought so many great speakers to Northeast Ohio, and it's been a wonderful way for our entrepreneurial education community to come together, to learn together, to acquire resources, to engage students in entrepreneurial thinking. This is thanks to the leadership, vision, and financial backing of the Morgan Foundation. Their support allows us to put together this annual event that once again is free of charge for anyone who wants to attend. The Morgan Foundation has built an amazing entrepreneurial ecosystem in Northeast Ohio of entrepreneurs, colleges, K-12 schools, and education providers. It's a model for those around the country and also around the world. At YEI, we are so grateful to call them our partners in this important work. And the leader behind the Morgan Foundation vision is President and CEO Deb Hoover. I'm pleased to introduce Deb today to give you a welcome and introduce our speakers. Deb.
Thank you, Eileen, and good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Burton D. Morgan Foundation is proud to partner with Young Entrepreneur Institute, bringing Inspire 2021 to educators. We've been partnering with YEI for 7 years now, as Eileen mentioned, developing and evolving the conference to bring dynamic speakers to hundreds of educators seeking to inspire the entrepreneurial mindset in their students. It's truly a labor of love between our two teams. Morgan Foundation believes that entrepreneurial skill building is critical to preparing students for the future, whether that means starting a venture or working as an innovator in an existing business. It's been a tumultuous year and a half for all of us, and because of this time we have navigated, we thought it more important than ever to help educators inspire their students through the entrepreneurial mindset. The daunting challenges of this time have generated a teachable moment, shining a bright light on the importance of entrepreneurial skills as a means to experiment and innovate. Educators have certainly been on the front lines of this societal transformation wrought by the pandemic, and we celebrate your daily heroism. Inspire 2021 is dedicated to your energy, perseverance, and grit. Thank you all so much. Our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Marcia Tate, is a former teacher, reading specialist, language arts coordinator, and staff development director, as well as the former executive director of professional development for the DeKalb County Schools in Georgia. As an educational consultant, she's taught over 500,000 administrators, teachers, parents, and community leaders throughout the world, and has authored 11 books, 8 of which are included in the best-selling Worksheets That Don't Grow Dendrites series. Marcia received her bachelor's degree at Spelman College, a master's degree at the University of Michigan, a specialist degree in educational leadership at Georgia State University, and a doctorate in education at Clark Atlanta University. And most importantly, she shared that her proudest role is being the grandmother of 9. So here to share her work this morning on improving student learning is Dr. Marcia Tate. Over to you, Marcia, and thank you so much.
And thank you, Deb, for that introduction. I appreciate it. I don't know how many of you are grandparents, but if they had told me how wonderful it would be to be a grandma, I would have skipped the children and I would have gone immediately to the grandchildren, and we are blessed with 9. I want to thank Eileen and everybody associated with the Young Entrepreneur Institute, because I think it's the most valuable and wonderful thing in its ability to prepare students for success in the real world, regardless of what career they choose to go into. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to share my screen with you because I'm going to be using this. Just a minute. As I teach you in this keynote today. I want to welcome you to Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites, 20 strategies that engage the brain and build an entrepreneurial mindset. Because we're going to be looking at these 20 strategies that every teacher should be using in the classroom to impart knowledge. But I'm also going to do an overlay of the skill sets and the mindsets from young entrepreneurs, and it's so easy to do. I want to tell you that we are in an extraordinary profession, and I want to tell you why. We are the only profession that impacts every other profession. Every doctor, every nurse, every carpenter, every technician comes by way of a teacher. They all had teachers, and so we actually change the world. Before the pandemic, I was crossing the United States and I was teaching teachers, but I was also teaching students. Here I am teaching 225 ninth graders. This is in Wenatchee, Washington, about 3 hours from Seattle. And I'm standing at the door and I'm greeting these ninth graders before they come into my class. And I'm realizing that a lot of students do not know how to shake your hand, look you in the eye and say good morning or good afternoon. So the first thing I taught them before I taught them what I came to teach is how do you shake a person's hand, look them in the eye and say good morning or good afternoon, because one of the best ways to exude confidence is with a hearty handshake and a good morning, a good afternoon, and eye contact. And while those handshakes may be rare right now, we will get back to the time when we can do those. Every brain needs a purpose. In fact, I'll teach you today that when the brain loses a purpose, often people don't live very long after that. And when students can't see the purpose in a lesson, they will raise their hand and ask you, why do we have to learn this? And so we have two purposes for our keynote today. One is a personal one, and one is a professional one. Let's start and end with the personal one. By the time I finish the keynote, you're going to know how to look 5 to 10 years younger, stay healthier, and live longer. I have a new book coming out in January called Healthy Teachers, Happy Classrooms. And it's about the 12 things that keep people living above the age of 80. And I will share 2 of those things with you today. One of those things is laughter. Laughter adds about 10 years to your life. And if you don't believe that, you haven't noticed the age at which most of your major comedians pass away. Now, we've had a couple of exceptions. We'll talk about the exceptions and we'll talk about the rule. We lost this wonderful man. There were several things happening in Robin Williams' life. First of all, he suffered from clinical depression. And then he was told by a doctor that he had a very debilitating form of dementia. Both of those propelled him into a downward spiral, and he ended up taking his own life. And then we lost the wonderful Joan Rivers. Joan was 81 years old, probably would have lived at least another 10 years had her brain not suffered oxygen deprivation during her surgery. But now let's talk about some comedians that prove the rule. All the major cast members on Andy Griffith lived to get to be over the age of 80. Andy Griffith died at 86, 8B died at 86, Barney Fife died at 81, Goober died at 83, and we lost Jim Nabors, the famous Gomer Pyle, at the age of 87. We've lost several comedians over the last few years. We lost Jerry Stiller, here he is with his son Ben, George's father on Seinfeld. He was 92 years old when he passed away. And then we lost Carl Reiner. Here he is with his son, Rob Reiner, and he was 98. And then we lost the wonderful Cloris Leachman from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and she was 94. And then I don't know if you've been following the age of this lady, but in January, Betty White will celebrate her 100th birthday. Now, why do comedians live so long? When you're laughing, you're increasing the number of T cells in your body. That's your immune system. So people who laugh a lot have stronger immunity against disease and illness. Did you also know that high stress is the #1 cause of aging? Maybe you didn't know this. The brain doesn't know the difference between real laughter and fake laughter. So if you're not tickled, you can fake it. That is why in the country of India, there are over 1,800 laughing clubs. Here's a laughing club in India. People are getting together and laughing and finding that their health is being improved. And it doesn't even have to be real laughter. It can be fake laughter. This is an issue of Time magazine devoted to what I teach, why optimistic people tend to live longer than pessimistic people, and why we all need to be laughing. Of course, optimism is one of the characteristics of that young entrepreneur's mindset. So optimism not only helps us live longer, but it helps us be better workers. How many of you know people who have a difficult time smiling? Well, if you do, when the conference is over, I want you to go on the internet and I want you to get those people a smile on a stick. This is a smile on a stick. And it comes in all races. Go to smileonastick.com and you can get you a smile on a stick. Let's say you're greeting your class, you don't feel like smiling, you can put up a fake one. They would love it. In fact, I use the smiles on a stick with students and they absolutely love it. I will be telling you jokes and riddles throughout the morning. If those jokes are not funny, just fake the laughter. Here's your first joke. 3 women were enjoying conversation at lunch when one commented about the fact that as she's getting older, she's losing her memory. She said, my memory is so bad. I can be sitting on the side of my bed at home and I can't remember whether I'm getting up or going to sleep. Another woman said, honey, I know what you mean. My memory's bad too. I can be standing on my stairs at home and I can't remember whether I'm going up or coming down. The third one said, you all are pitiful. My memory is so much better than yours. Knock on wood. Come in. Remember, if that joke is not funny, just fake the laughter. Our second purpose today is a professional one. And we're going to answer the question, what are 20 strategies that I must use, not should use, not can use, but must use to engage the brains of my students, but also to build that entrepreneurial mindset that we want to build in the brains of all students. And so that's the question we will be answering. You should have a handout that looks like the visual. On the handout, I have filled in 10 of those 20 strategies because I knew we wouldn't have time to write all 10. But I'm going to ask you to get your pen or pencil handy, or if you want to do it on your computer, that's fine too. And we're going to write in the first 10 strategies because writing helps us remember. In fact, the first strategy is writing. Could you please put that on line number 1? The brain remembers what it writes down. There is some research to support that the brain remembers what it writes even a little better than it remembers what it types. So there's sometimes we want our students typing, and there are other times we may want them writing. When you look at the skill set for young entrepreneurs, one is reflection. Some of that reflection that they're going to do could be in writing, where they're actually reviewing a process and figuring out whether the outcomes of what they want it to be, and that could be in writing, okay? But a word of caution about writing. I have been in middle and high schools where teachers are asking students to take copious notes and they're continuing to lecture at the same time. That actually will not work. The brain can only pay conscious attention to one thing at a time. So they're either missing part of the notes trying to listen to the lecture, or they're missing the lecture trying to get all the notes. Watch the way we write this morning. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to write, then we'll discuss, or vice versa. Okay. By the way, if the brain can only pay conscious attention to one thing at a time, what does that say for talking on your cell phone while you're driving? One of those is unconscious. And the latest thing is texting while driving, which is even worse. One teacher told me she saw a bumper sticker on the back of a car that said, honk if you love Jesus, text if you want to meet him. Well, let me tell you a story to illustrate the point that I am making. And all the stories I will tell you this morning are true. My daughter Jennifer was going to get some food for dinner about 7 years ago when the woman in front of her ran through the red light and proceeded to run up on the sidewalk and into 3 teenagers who were innocently standing on the sidewalk. Jenny stopped her car to see if she could render aid to the 3 teenagers who had been hit and was actually holding the hand of a 17-year-old when he passed away. She later found out that this woman was talking on her cell phone while she was driving, and she was having an argument with her husband. So she was emotionally connected to the conversation and oblivious to anything going on around her, and ended up taking the lives of 3 teenagers because all of them eventually died. This happened in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am from. I just used strategy number 2 with you, storytelling. Could you please write that in as your number 2? Teachers, I don't know how many of you tell stories to teach points, but stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the brain can follow a story. When they remember your story, they remember the point that you were trying to make when you were teaching them. Strategy number 3 is the use of mnemonic devices. Don't write, mnemonic is tricky to spell. Look at the screen. There we go. Mnemonic devices. Mnemonic devices are acronyms and acrostics. They're in every single content area. If I want my students in social studies to know the Great Lakes, I teach them Holmes, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. If I want my students in music to know the spaces is face and the lines every good boy does fine. If I want my students in math to know the order of operations is PEMDAS, please excuse my Deion Sally, unless you're teaching in Canada. And then it's BEDMAS. They use brackets instead of parentheses. Allow me to introduce myself to you in a way that you will never forget my name. In fact, by the time I get through with this keynote, I will have used about 12 of these 20 strategies. I'm going to use storytelling and mnemonic devices. My first name is Marcia. That's what I want you to call me. How do you remember that? I have the same name as the oldest daughter in the Brady Bunch. The oldest daughter's name was Marcia. Marcia had a younger sister named Jan who was fed up with her because Marcia got all the attention. You know from that commercial that Jan said, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. 3 times is the minimum number of times you need to hear my name before it sticks to your brain. 3 times is also the minimum number of times students need to hear something taught and reviewed before they get it. Do not teach something once and wonder why the class didn't get it. The brain needs repetition. Now, how do you remember the spelling of my name? Mother should have spelled my name M-A-R-S-H-A. She did not. She spelled it M-A-R-C-I-A. I get called Marcia all the time, but you know it's not Marcia, you know it's Marcia. However, if you want to remember the spelling, you must remember that I am a member of the CIA. That is my mnemonic device, and I'm sticking to it. I am in the CIA. Now, if I talk to you or at this hour with no engagement on the part of your brain, you will be lucky to remember 10% of my keynote. So I'm going to engage you in several ways. One of those ways is by making you a duck or a goose. Let me tell you the definition of a duck. A duck would be a person who's been in education from 0 to 15 years. So if you've been in education in any capacity from 0 to 15 years, for this keynote, you are a duck. If you have been in education 16 or more years, for this presentation, you are a goose. When I teach in person, the ducks and the geese sit close to each other. And then when I need them to turn and discuss with their partner and use some of those skill sets of communication and collaboration, they're able to turn and talk. But because I'm doing virtual today, we're going to have different definitions for ducks and geese. Ducks will be 0 to 15 years, geese will be 16 or more years. Just keep that in mind as we go through. Here's something else we're not going to be able to use, but I want you to know about this. And so you might want to turn your handout over on the back. I'm going to give you a minute to draw this clock. Would you draw that clock, please? And then I'll tell you what the clock can be used for in your classroom. In your clock, I only want you to put 4 lines and 4 times. That's it. This is called an appointment clock, or when I teach adults, I call it a date clock. And this is the purpose of the clock. You want to put on some fast-paced music in class. You want to have students draw this clock, put in the 4 times, and then have them get up and make 4 appointments with 4 different people in class who do not sit close to them. This gives them an opportunity to communicate and collaborate with other people in class. And so what they're going to do is circulate around the room, write the name of the person they made the appointment with on the line, and it should be 4 different appointments. And then at specific times during instruction, you're going to stop and ask them to get up and go find their 12 o'clock appointment and discuss whatever it is you need them to discuss. This is a really good way to put in some movement along with some collaboration and some communication. How will we spend our time? I will give you 3 reasons why every single teacher needs these 20 strategies. Then I'm going to do an abbreviated biology lesson with you called Brain-Body Connections. Then when we finish that, we'll finish the list of 20 strategies. And then I will close by telling you one more way that keeps people living above the age of 80. And then we will take our break before we do the follow-up breakout session. All right, let's look at the 3 reasons why every teacher should be using these 20 strategies. When I finish with these reasons, I want you to pick your favorite reason, and you're going to stand according to the one that is your favorite. Number 1, they increase achievement for all students. These strategies will increase academic achievement for every student who is sitting in your class. They work for elementary students, middle school students, high school students, college students, adults. 12 of them will work for your adult brain this morning. They work for our special education students, regular ed students, gifted students. They work for students for whom English is a second language. They work for students who have characteristics of attention deficit. I happen to be the mother of a son who has characteristics of ADD. To say that school was a struggle for my child is an understatement. There was a time we thought that Chris would not finish high school. If he had had access to your program, my son would have been so much more successful in school. Number 2, they decrease behavior problems. Some students disrupt because they're bored. Other students disrupt because they feel inadequate. They can't do what the teacher is asking them to do, and they will often cover up that inadequacy with misbehavior. What you find is when you start teaching this way, the ones that are bored are actively engaged in learning. They don't have time to be bored. And the ones that felt inadequate are successful. And a successful student seldom disrupts your class. And then number 3, they make teaching and learning so much fun. This is my 48th year in the business of educating students and adults. I have loved every minute of it. And in those 48 years, I've seen kindergarten students come to school on the first day of school so excited. There's a light shining in their eyes. I've seen that light go out in a lot of eyes, including the eyes of my son. So by the time they get to high school, that light's not there anymore. And it's like, get me out of here. I can't stand school. I believe that even if a teacher is teaching AP calculus, students ought to be knocking each other over to get to class, because class ought to be a great place to be. Now, those 3 reasons, I would like for you to pick your favorite. And I'm going to ask you to stand up. I can't see whether all of you are going to stand or not, but let me tell you the reason why I want you to stand. When we sit for 20 minutes or longer, the blood pools in 2 parts of the body, the seat and the feet, which means it moves away from the brain. Within 1 minute after standing, the blood begins to circulate. Some of that circulates back, hopefully to the brain, and it makes you more alert and it helps you think better. And so I'm going to ask you to stand according to the one you picked. If you picked they increase academic achievement for all students as your favorite, please stand up now. It is our job as educators to increase achievement for every single student in our class. So if you pick that one, good answer. You may be seated. If you pick number 2, they decrease behavior problems, please stand up. What if teachers could spend 95% of their time teaching and only 5% managing? Would that be wonderful? Look at what would get accomplished in a period or in a day. So if you pick that one, that's a good one as well. You may sit down. If you pick number 3, they make teaching and learning fun, please stand. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Teaching and learning fun. I couldn't teach any other way, and I see people standing on that one as well as some of the others. You may be seated. Thank you very much. I want you to know that on Monday, I was teaching this class, the full day class, to 200 high school teachers in Hall County in Georgia. And I asked this question, and we had 70% of the class standing on number 3. They make teaching and learning fun. And every time I have taught this class, more people stand on 3 than any other. And this is what they tell me, and you tell me if you agree. They tell me if teaching and learning were fun, 1 and 2 might happen as well. And that is what they say. And many of us said the same thing. I see heads nodding that you said the same thing. Yeah, the good news is you can get all 3 for the price of 20. For the 20 strategies that I'll be sharing with you today that are research-based, your academic achievement will soar, your behavior problems will be decreased, and teaching and learning will once again become fun. I would like to invite you into my brain-compatible biology class, where the academic achievement is so high, the behavior problems are almost non-existent, and teaching and learning is a blast. Before I do that, however, I want to share with you that some years ago, there was a Time magazine that was devoted to the fact that the United States had become dropout nation. And at that time, 30% of America's high school students were leaving and they were not bothering to graduate. Now, that was a while ago. There's good news, there's bad news. The good news is that percentage has decreased. We're not losing 30% of our high school students anymore, and that's great news. The bad news is 20 to 25% is still too many, still too many. And if we could introduce your program to more students, we would see more and more students being successful with that entrepreneurial mindset. I'm going to stop sharing, and I am going to ask you to imitate some things that I am doing. And when we finish this, you're going to know 10 or more facts about your brain. All right, so everybody look at the visual. When we are born with memory cells called neurons. What are they called? Neurons. And I want you to answer me back when I ask you a question, because that helps as well. They're called neurons. That neuron, in fact, you're born with 100 billion neurons. How many? 100 billion. Those neurons have three parts. Put up your dominant arm. Your arm is now a neuron. Wiggle your fingers. These are connections at the end of your neuron called dendrites. Wave at the screen with your dendrites. Here's the neat part. Every single time a student learns something new from you, their brain grows a new dendrite. On your next resume, put teacher dendrite grower. That's your job. Your job is to grow dendrites. Tap the palm of your hand. That is the cell body of your neuron. Say cell body. And your arm is the axon. Say axon. Wonderful. Now let's review the three parts of a neuron. What were these? Are dendrites. And this, the cell body. And this, the axon. Now you need to know that in the brain, dendrites do not talk to other dendrites. They can't stand each other, so they don't speak. Dendrites actually speak to the axon, but they don't touch the axon because the message has to jump over some space. Science teachers, you know that that space is called the synapse. That's hard to remember, so let's make it easier. Everybody synapse your fingers. The synapse is the space between the dendrites and the axon over which the message has to cross. So I need you to take your dendrites, talk to somebody else's axon, but don't touch them. Your message has to cross the synapse. Okay. Wonderful. All right. How do we get those messages to cross the synapse faster? Repetition. The more students practice a skill or the more they hear content repeated in class, the faster the messages cross the synapse. You also need to know that low to moderate stress is good for learning. That is why teachers should be calling on non-volunteers as well as volunteers. But high stress is a threat to the brain. And not only will it shut the brain down to higher level thinking, it's also the reason people have to be treated for post-traumatic stress disorder. Your brain was not meant to be in a state of high stress. I need to teach you one more thing, and then we will share our screen. Okay. Everybody hit yourself lightly in the frontal lobe. This is where a lot of problem solving and higher level thinking occurs. That frontal lobe does not fully mature until a person is in their mid-20s or older. That is why teenagers can make some bad decisions sometimes. How many of you have teenagers living in your home? The next time they make a decision you don't agree with, I don't want you to get upset. I want you to calmly look at them and say, I understand, dear, your frontal lobe is not mature yet. I raised 3 immature frontal lobes. I have 3 children. That ends our biology lesson. I'm going to share my screen with you again. And I have an assignment for you. I'm going to give you, instead of 2 minutes, I'm going to give you about 1.5 minutes to write down as many brain facts as you can remember from the biology lesson that I just shared with you. Please write down any brain facts you can remember. You can use the back of your handout from the biology lesson that I just shared. Okay, stop. And as I'm looking at you, I'm excited because most of you are writing the entire time. So that's a good job. Count up the number of brain facts you listed and put the total at the top of your column. Now I want to increase the number of brain facts, and this is how we're going to do it. I need my ducks and ducks only. If you would go to the chat box and write in one brain fact that you learned from our lesson this morning, only one. Write that brain fact in the chat box. Everybody else go to the chat box. And as you're looking at what the ducks are putting in, if you see a brain fact that you do not already have on your list, please add it to your list of brain facts, because we want to increase the number of brain facts that you now have. And I will go to the chat box as well to see what my students are putting into the chat box about what they learned. So go ahead and do that now. Ducks, you're going to put your brain facts in the chat box. Everybody else, you're going to go and look and see what they wrote. I'm seeing some brain facts that are very, very accurate. Wonderful. All right, would you leave your list of brain facts, please? And would you go back to your list of 20 strategies? I just used some additional strategies when I taught you that information about your brain. We're going to list those strategies. I'm going to give you the latest research as to why you must use these when you're teaching. Strategy number 4 is the use of visuals. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, they're not kidding. Anytime you can show your students what it is you're teaching them, that is better than just telling them. I stopped screen sharing because I was your visual for that biology lesson. I also have PowerPoint because you need visuals. These young entrepreneurs need visuals so that they can see what it is you need them to do. But I loved as the students shared some of their products this morning, and those will be visuals for people who are in the marketplace who want to buy what it is that they're selling. Strategy number 4 is movement. Movement. Next to movement, I need you to write a formula. Please write AS equals age plus 1. AS is a mnemonic device for attention span. The attention span of a student's brain is approximately equal to their age plus 1 year. So if you're teaching 7-year-olds, the average attention span is 8 minutes. For a 12-year-old, 13 minutes. For a 16-year-old, 17 minutes. The bad news is for an 80-year-old, it is not 81 minutes. The longest time, or the average time that the adult brain can pay attention, is approximately 20 minutes. I've told that to my minister, but the sermon is still lasting longer than 20 minutes. I am a PK, I'm a preacher's kid. We have friends who are ministers. I have this one friend who said, Marcia, when I'm preaching, I'm trying to strike oil. If I hadn't struck oil in 20 minutes, then I stop boring. Stop boring. When I teach teachers, I take my workshops, divided them up into approximate 20-minute segments, and I make sure I have some activity for each segment. We're going to continue to talk about the power of movement as we go in through this keynote and the next session. A teacher told me this once, and I thought it was so profound. We spend the first 3 years of our children's lives teaching them to walk and talk, and the next 15 telling them to sit down and shut up. Absolutely, absolutely. We often think of movement as being a part of that kindergarten or pre-K classroom. And yet, if you teach high school, you can have students making appointments with other students and communicating and collaborating with those appointments at a certain time in class when you are ready for them to discuss something that you happen to be teaching. I want you to see a classroom where there's no talking on the part of students and there's no movement on the part of students, and what can happen. Hopefully this will never be a classroom in a building where you're teaching. I started thinking, I said, if the purpose of school is to prepare you to be successful in the world of work, and that's exactly what you do. I started thinking of jobs in the world of work where people were not moving. And there was one job that I thought about, and this is it. But they even say that the guards at Buckingham Palace change out about every 20 or so minutes. So they're not having to stand still for very long periods of time. Do you know they're even cautioning adults now that have desk jobs about sitting at those desks all day? And they're making things like Veridesks that raise up where they can actually do their work while they are standing, because sitting for long periods of time can be detrimental not only to the brain, but to the body as well. Strategy number 6 is role play. Role play. We just role played or acted out that biology lesson, and I want to show you how smart you are. Everybody look at me on the screen. What are these? I hope you're saying dendrites. And what was this? Cell body, and this axon. What did the axon talk to? The dendrites, but they didn't touch because the message has to cross over the what? The synapse. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Where does a lot of problem solving occur? Frontal lobe, which doesn't mature until we're in our 20s. Great, great job. The reason you remembered so much from the biology lesson is because we acted it out or role played it. While I was teaching you about the brain, we were doing things with our arms to help us remember. That is role play, acting out what it is we're learning. This is the reason we often get up and act out the steps in a math word problem, or we get up and act out a scene from history, or we get up and act out the definition of a vocabulary word. Strategy number 7 is visualization. Visualization. Visualization is seeing in your mind what it is that you're learning. And many of you, when you were making your list of brain facts, you were visualizing what it was that we did in the lesson. Visualization. I'm a reading specialist. I know that if my students have no visuals in a novel they're reading, it may be necessary to visualize the action in the novel to know what's going on, or my comprehension is going to be affected. So visualization, absolutely. Strategy number 8 is metaphor, analogy, simile. In teaching you the lesson, I connected to something that some of you may not have known about, the neuron, to something you did know about, which was your fingers, palm of your hand, and your arm. When you take what they don't know and connect it to what they do know, they have a place to put the new information in the brain. When I teach main idea in details, I tell students that a main idea in details is like a table and legs. The top of the table is the main idea. The legs are the supporting details. And when they write for me, if they don't have enough support, you know what I tell them? Your table's leaning, which means you don't have enough support for your main idea, okay? Before we go on to number 9, I want to back up and I want to go back through the first 8 to tell you that one of the reasons they work in school is because when you were created with a brain, it was not to make straight A's or score high on the SAT. It was to survive in the real world. And that's why the program that you work with makes so much sense, because these students are being taught how to be successful in the real world in which they live. Look at strategy number 1 and 2. Before history was in writing, how was history passed down? Storytelling, oral tradition, so you could pass your history down to the next generation. Look at number 3. The public is never going to remember acquired immune deficiency syndrome, so they just shorten it to AIDS. There's a mnemonic device for everything. It's not the National Football League, it's the NFL. It's not the Federal Bureau of Investigation, it's the FBI. And thanks to social media, we have some new mnemonic devices like OMG and LOL. There's a mnemonic device now for so much. Look at number 4. It is not enough for them to tell you what to do with your seatbelt on the plane. They know you need a visual. So they either get out in the aisle and show you what to do, or you're looking at a pre-recorded message, but they know you will need a visual so that you can understand what you need to do. Look at number 5. I need to tell you that anything you learn while you're moving is hardwired into one of the strongest memory systems you have. This is why people never forget how to drive a car. How many of you can drive a stick? Raise your hand if you can drive a stick. Yeah, you'll never forget that. No matter how long you drive an automatic, it is hardwired in your brain. Why? Because you were moving when you learned it. Your ability to be able to type, to be able to play the piano. I had a teacher who told me that her mother has Alzheimer's. Her mother no longer recognizes her and no longer recognizes her grandchildren, but her mother is a pianist. She said, Marcia, my mom can still go to the piano and play songs she once played. Why? Because she was moving her fingers along the keys when she first learned to play. And so anytime you can get students engaged in the projects in which you have them engaged in, and even infuse that movement into the lesson, it makes a big difference to how much they're able to understand and remember. Look at number 6. I have a friend whose daughter finished law school. What was one semester? Practice court. What did she have to do? She had to take a case, research the case, and present it to a judge. Is it real? No, she hasn't passed the bar, but she's practicing so she will know what to do when she becomes an attorney. Look at number 7. Where does visualization show up in the real world? I'll tell you 2 places. One is medicine. Doctor friends of mine tell me it's a good thing to have patients who are taking chemotherapy. Visualize the chemotherapy medicine knocking out the cancer cells, because if the brain can see it, that increases the effectiveness of the medicine. And another place is sports. Athletes will visualize themselves scoring the touchdown or hitting the home run before the game even begins. Absolutely, visualization. On Monday, I asked my high school teachers to visualize the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series, and I think we did it. So it's just absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. If I have an extra smile on my face today, it is because I'm from Atlanta and we are the world champions. Look at number 8. Number 8. Finish these similes from the real world, like sands through the hourglass. The veteran teachers are probably saying, so are the days of our lives. And the younger teachers are probably saying, what? Because you've never heard it before. Try this one. Like a good neighbor. State Farm is there, absolutely. Here's another one. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. People use similes and they speak metaphorically all the time to get the public to understand their message. And I told you that the frontal lobe of the brain doesn't fully mature until you're in your 20s. Allstate Insurance knows this. Here's an ad from Allstate, okay? Why do most 16-year-olds drive like they're missing a part of their brain? Because they are. This article says that this is the reason that 16-year-old drivers have crash rates that are 3 times higher than 17-year-olds and 5 times higher than 18-year-olds. And it's the reason my 3 children did not drive in Atlanta traffic at 16. We have horrible traffic in Atlanta. I told my son, I'm trying to save your life. Your frontal lobe's not mature yet. I said, but you wouldn't know that because your frontal lobe's not mature yet. He did not think that was funny. Strategy number 9 is reciprocal teaching, cooperative learning. This is a strategy that will build students' ability to be able to communicate, to present information clearly and effectively, and to collaborate where they're working together to achieve a goal. And that's one of the main things they're going to need to be able to do in the workplace, is to work with a team of culturally diverse people. So when we're having them teach another student what you've taught them or work together to accomplish a goal, we are indeed preparing them to be successful in the world of work. Here is a classroom where a teacher is working with a group of students. Some are standing up, some are sitting down. They're working to get this project out the door, and that's the way it should be. Strategy number 10 is music. Underneath where you wrote the word music, I need you to number to 3. Just go straight down the page, 1, 2, 3. I want to share with you what the research is telling us about the power of music for the brain. I'd like for you to jot these 3 pieces of research down so that you can remember them and pass them on to others. The first thing I want you to remember about music is that music can change the state or the mood in your brain. There's another way to say this. I can make you happy. I can make you sad. I can make you calm. I can agitate you by the type of music I choose to play. TV and movie producers know this. How many times have you been looking at a movie? They'll play music and you'll be in tears right in the middle of the movie. Or you can have invigorating music, such as the theme from Rocky or Happy. And some of you will remember the music from this movie. What movie is this? Dun, 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 dun. If you said Jaws, you'd be correct. If you look at the movie Jaws, notice that the shark does not show up in person until the movie is half over and they're in the ocean. It is the music that creates the suspense to that point. When I teach classroom management, we talk about the types of music that would be calming for students that you could have playing as they assemble for class, such as classical or new age, or slow Celtic music, smooth jazz, Native American music. Sometimes you don't want slow music. Sometimes you want energizing music while they're working on a project. So that could be salsa music or rock and roll or rhythm and blues or fast-paced country. By the way, do you know what you get if you play a country song backwards? You get your wife back, you get your house back, you get your alimony payments stopped, and you get out of jail. I do a lot of work in Texas. They told me that in Dallas. Number 2, the second thing I'd like for you to know about music is that a math-music connection exists in many brains. There's a math-music connection. I have a daughter who has a math-music connection in her brain, so I brought you a visual so you could see our family. This is us. Next to me is Tyrone. We've been married for 42 years. Behind her dad is our daughter, Jessica. Jessica has the math-music connection in her brain. Jess had 12 years of piano lessons. She sight reads music. She played the trombone in the high school band. She sang in the chorus in high school and college. Jessie knocked the top out of the SAT in math, and she speaks fluent German. She had finished an Ivy League school with a degree in German, decided she wanted to go back. And because she said, Mom and Dad, what I really want to do is own my own restaurant. And so she went to Johnson & Wales and did a second degree in culinary arts. And for a long time, she was the head chef at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia. And now she's in an administrative position over 5 restaurants at a resort area near Atlanta. In the middle is our daughter, Jennifer. Jennifer followed in Mom's footsteps. She started as a classroom teacher, and she's now a building principal at an elementary school in Atlanta. And then on the end is Chris. I mentioned to you earlier that Chris has characteristics of attention deficit. He would have been perfect had we had the opportunity to participate in the wonderful program that you work with. Let me show you these grandkids. This is Aiden. This is Jennifer, the principal. Her husband is an assistant principal. This is Lex. Aiden is 13, and this is Aaron. Let me tell you a quick story about Aaron. Aaron is named for Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron was number 44. Aaron was born at 3:44 in the afternoon, and guess who delivered him? A midwife by the name of Jackie Robinson. When you're born at 3:44 and delivered by Jacqueline Robinson, you're destined for baseball greatness, and he is a phenomenal baseball player already. This is my son, Chris, and his 4 children. This is Christian, she is 15, and Maxwell in the stripe, black and white stripe. And then you have Shiloh and Roman. And then I don't have a picture of the chef, who's married to an executive chef, so they can't stay still long enough for me to get a picture of them, but here are their children. This is Miss Aya, who went to pre-K this year and was so excited she couldn't sleep the night before. Aya has a younger brother named Noah, and Aya and Noah have a little sister named Alyssa. So those are the 9, if you count them, those are the 9 grandchildren. The third thing I want you to know about music is that music helps memory. Music helps memory.
Battery 80%.
I don't know if you've been experiencing or reading about the profound effects of music with Alzheimer's patients. They're finding that when they can't remember people's names and faces, they're still remembering the lyrics to music. That is how profound music can be for the brain. Teachers are also using music to help students remember content. I want you to meet Warren Phillips. Until recently, Warren Phillips taught 8th grade science in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and he would get students so turned on to science that many of his students would select careers in science when they went on to college. And so Warren took all the standards in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and he wrote songs so that his students could sing their way through any science test. We're going to sing along with Warren and his 8th graders. The tune is YMCA by the Village People, but the lyrics are SKIN because Warren's students have got to know the function of the layers of the skin. You will hear Warren playing the keyboards. He also plays the guitar. Please sing along with Warren to Skin. Everybody sing.
You there, tanning skin in the sun, epidermis. Damage may have begun at top layer. Help protect us from harm like bacteria and bad germs. Your skin is shedding from head to toe while it's making many new cells below, plus a pigment. Melanin is displayed. It protects us from UV rays. I'm all wrapped up in my SKIN. I'm all wrapped up in my SKIN. It makes vitamin D, keeps your body waste free, stops infections from getting to me. Dermis.
Of course, dermis is the second verse, but if I ask you to recall some functions of the epidermis, thanks to Warren's song, you'd be able to do that. This is Warren Phillips, who's gotten so many accolades for his ability to be able to teach science. If you want to check out his songs, go to his website, which is wphillips.com, and look for Sing Along Science. Warren has gotten so many emails from students who have been in his classes and who have gone on to college. And here's one from Marina. Marina says, Mr. P, and she's a high school senior. Remember, he teaches 8th grade. Today, I took the SAT-2 biology test, and many of your songs helped me ace many sections of that test. Again, thank you for your boundless creativity during 8th grade science, Marina. The last time I checked with Warren to find out what was going on with Marina, he said that he had talked to her recently, and Marina is now a marine biologist. When I was looking for someone who could help me write a book for science teachers, there was not a better person than Warren. So this is the bestseller Warren and I wrote together. Science Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites, 20 Instructional Strategies that Engage the Brain. Let's go ahead and quickly review the last 10. By the way, I've used all of the first 10 with you today, and I will be using a couple of, in the next session, the breakout session, we will be using a graphic organizer. So we'll do that in the next session that follows this session. Graphic organizers are mind maps, word webs, concept maps, and they're great for both hemispheres of the brain. Many of the students that you work with are excellent artists. And sometimes I walk in classrooms and I see students drawing things that are totally unrelated to what the teacher's teaching. be thinking of content that you'll be teaching them this year that they could be drawing, because many of them are going to go into careers where they can use their ability to draw, such as architecture or engineering. And so have them drawing, have them designing in class, because we're preparing them for the present as well as the future. Number 13 is humor. Humor. Those of you who teach middle and high school, you have a class clown, please use them. The job of the class clown is to bring you in some riddles and jokes. Read over them first, make sure they're not inappropriate. Those of you who teach kindergarten and first grade, your babies do not get jokes. Their brain is not highly developed enough to get a joke, but they like riddles. So let's look at some riddles. See if you can answer these. Why did the coach go to the bank? Why did the coach go to the bank? And I hope you said to get his quarterback. Remember, if they're not funny, fake the laughter. What did one strawberry say to another strawberry? If you weren't so fresh, we wouldn't be in this jam. This is for my English teachers. What is the difference between a cat and a comma? A cat and a comma. A cat has claws at the end of its paws. A comma is a pause at the end of a clause. You have to think at high levels to be able to solve these riddles, okay? And one of my favorites is, what did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, breathe. If you don't get that one, you can have somebody explain that one to you. The next one, number 14. Let's go to the next slide, is discussion and brainstorming. Discussion and brainstorming. This is another opportunity for young entrepreneurs to be able to use the skill set of communication. When you have students discussing ideas in class or brainstorming ideas, it makes such a difference. And you want them to be able to present that information clearly and to present it effectively. And during this strategy, they can do that. Number 15 is games. The minute you say to students, let's play a game, the brain goes, oh, goody. The stress level goes down while the retention rate can come up. And so reviewing before the test with a Jeopardy game or tossing a ball around the room as students are giving answers is very motivational to students as they are recalling content. 16, is one that falls right in line with the program that you work with, project or problem-based learning. When students are coming up or solving a problem, okay, they can take that initiative. When they can be resourceful in solving a problem, so they can apply the skill set of resourcefulness. When they are involved in a project, okay, they can take responsibility or initiative for completing that project. So this is one where these young entrepreneurs can certainly practice their mind and skill sets. Here is a science classroom where students are involved in a project that they will not soon forget. Anytime we're up and moving and involved in those projects, the brain tends to remember. Strategy number 17, field trips. When students can go to places in the real world, that's a good thing. But until the time comes when we may be able to do that again, let's look at virtual field trips where we can take students to places that would be cost prohibitive or inaccessible. So virtual field trips can be utilized until we can do those in-person field trips that are so crucial. Number 18 is manipulatives. There's such a strong relationship between the hands and the brain. You'll see students counting on their fingers before they no longer need them, but they still need Unifix cubes and geoboards in math and experiments in science because of that strong correlation between hand and brain. Number 19, technology. We've had to rely a lot on number 19 over the last 18 months. I went from total in-person presentations to total Zoom presentations, and it took some adjusting, but I was so thankful that we had that technology to be able to use. And it's one of the 8 basic competencies that every high school student needs to be proficient with prior to graduation. Here's my concern, and I'll share the next slide with you and let you read that for yourself. I don't want us to become so reliant on technology that we lose the importance of the interpersonal skills and relationships that are going to be so valuable and so important in the workplace itself. Strategy number 20, and this is the last one, is work study. Work study. Work study cannot be modeled in a keynote. Work study is on-the-job training. And you use this all the time. Work study is learning to do a job while you're studying with someone who is occupying that job. When Jessica was at Johnson & Wales, Johnson & Wales sent her for 6 months to the Biltmore Estates. In fact, she was there at Christmas and we went to be with her. And she rotated through the foregrounds on the Biltmore, learning how to be a chef. And I said, Jessie, you'll learn more about being a chef in those 6 months than you'll ever learn sitting in classrooms studying about how to be a chef. This is the book that I'm teaching you in the keynote. Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites, 20 Instructional Strategies that Engage the Brain. This book has the research behind why these strategies work for the brain, as well as numerous classroom examples of how to integrate them into your lessons. And I sent information that could be put in the chat room about how you can get these. You can get all my books on Amazon or from Corin Press. We're going to end the keynote with the second thing that keeps people living above the age of 80, and it is purpose. People have to have a reason to get up in the morning or something to do. And when people lose that purpose, they often don't live very long after that. This is why Debbie Reynolds died one day after her daughter Carrie Fisher died. She lost her purpose. Okay, she lost her purpose. She even told her son, I want to be with my daughter. And one day later, she was with her daughter. Kate Spade's dad did not make it to her funeral. He died of a broken heart. Can you die of a broken heart? Absolutely. There is a name for it. There is a physiological name for it. But he dies on the eve of her funeral because he is so brokenhearted. Sometimes it happens with couples where they've been married a long time, very devoted to one another. One passes away, the other often follows. Barbara Bush died April 2018 at the age of 92. George, her husband, and I was hoping that George would live on, but he did not. 7 months later, he died at the age of 94. Okay, they had been married for 73 years. The research is telling us that this generation may be the first in 200 years whose life expectancy may not exceed the life expectancy of their parents. It has nothing to do with COVID at all. It has to do with nutritional deficits. It has to do with the lack of movement or a sedentary lifestyle, and also the high stress lifestyles that a lot of students are living under. But I want to end with a positive note. Okay, this is the book I wrote for how we can prepare children for success in school and in life. This is not only how do you prepare children academically, but how do we prepare children physically and emotionally and socially. This is it in Arabic and in Korean. And I want you to meet Art Hauge. Art Hauge is talking to his daughter, Ashley Reed. Ashley was in my classroom, and Art Hauge's purpose is to build birdhouses. He gets up every morning, he builds a birdhouse, and he gives those birdhouses away to people who live in retirement homes. Art Hauge in the picture is 105 years old. He's 105 years old. And then Art Hauge also lives by himself, and one of the ways he keeps fit is by cutting his own grass. Imagine a 105-year-old man using a push lawnmower, not a riding lawnmower, to cut his own grass. This is my mom. My mom was one of 11 children For the longest, she was the only living sibling. I lost aunts and uncles in their 40s and their 50s. She had one brother who lived to get to be 72 years old. Everybody else died earlier than the age of 72. If you look at Mom's sunrise, subtracted from her sunset, you'll realize she lived to be 92 years old, which means she outlived her oldest brother by 20 years. Okay. They say if you leave them laughing, they'll invite you back. And since I would love to be invited back for another wonderful conference, I want to leave you laughing. This is a true story told to me by a first grade teacher at the end of my workshop. She came up to me and she said, Marcia, I just need to tell you that I have become the worksheet queen. I've been giving my first graders entirely too many worksheets. I know not to do that, but I really don't know what else to do. Now that I've been with you for a day, I know alternatives to those worksheets. I want you to know that one young man was looking at the worksheets placed on his desk, and the stack kept growing and growing and growing and growing. He wrote a note and he slipped it on his teacher's desk. Okay, slipped it on the teacher's desk. When she told me what was on the note, I said, you have got to mail it to me. And she did. Those of you who either teach first grade or you have first graders in your home, you know they use invented spelling. This is the note this first grader wrote to his teacher about how he felt about her worksheet fun packets. Now, I don't condone profanity, and neither did she, but we said, bless his heart, he spelled it the way he thought it ought to be spelled. And I'd like to spell it that way too sometimes, because if I ask you to recite the lyrics to a song learned as a child, you could recite those song lyrics because music is brain compatible. If I ask you to retell a story told as a child, you could retell that story to me because storytelling is brain compatible. But if I ask you to remember a worksheet that you had when you were in school, you would be hard pressed to remember it because worksheets simply don't grow dendrites. Thank you very much for having me as your keynote speaker for this wonderful conference, and I look forward to continuing this conversation in the session that will be in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
How about some love from Marcia Tate? Oh my goodness. Humor, movements, mnemonics, role playing. It's so much to think about, so much to enjoy your stories. And the last one, love that. Perfect. Perfect. Wow. We're going to take a break very, very soon and give you a chance for some movement. But I also want to let you know what's coming up. The next session after our 5-minute break is going to be a workshop choice. For those of you who want to continue with Marcia Tate, she is going to be doing a follow-up, and her session is going to be called 10 Characteristics of a Brain Compatible Classroom. And there is also an option for a workshop with John Spencer. John was our keynote speaker, one of our keynotes from yesterday. John is a former middle school teacher and a current full-time professor. He is in his second year of teaching. He used design thinking for a student-centered documentary project. Everything changed. He spent the next decade on a journey to empower students to become creative thinkers and problem solvers. This meant mural projects, service learning projects, STEM camps, coding projects, but it also meant mistakes, tons of them. It meant lessons that tanked and projects that failed, but each failure was another iteration on the road to innovation. See, we're tying it all together with this morning's mindset lesson. John has worked with schools, organizations, conferences, as well as had the chance to speak at the White House and share his vision for the future of learning, one that empowers students to be creative thinkers. John is going to be leading a workshop on empowered project-based learning, engaging learners through choice, technology, and innovative practices. So for those of you who want to join with Marcia, stay in this room. For those of you who want to join with John, we're We're going to be throwing that link in the chat. You can also find the link in your Whova app. Thank you, Inspire host, for sharing that link. And next, we're going to be just doing a 5-minute dance break so we can have humor and movement, and giving you a 5-minute restroom and stretch break as well. So with that, we'll see you back here in about an hour. We have, remember, the Sam Elliott Educator Award and the Yippee Connections game. So we'll see you back in a little while. Welcome to the dance break. Is the other room open?